Lindsay, now I understand that meeting was meant to happen, that caucus was meant to happen today, in part to discuss the future of Mmusi Maimane. Would he stay on in Parliament as parliamentary leader? We now know that he's made that decision. Does the caucus now go ahead? And where in the world is John Steenhuisen?
Good morning, Michelle. Well, that caucus was, in fact, very brief today. It is customary for caucuses of all the political parties to meet on a Thursday, so not an unusual caucus meeting here today specifically to discuss recent developments. It would have met anyway, but it was really a short caucus because the Chief Whip usually tables his report, and now we know that John Steenhuisen is no longer the Chief Whip because he is elected or selected by the leader in Parliament of the official opposition, and with Mmusi Maimane now no longer the leader here in Parliament, so too John Steenhuisen no longer holds that post of Chief Whip, and his deputy is now the acting Chief Whip, Jacques Julius. I should also point out that even though Mmusi Maimane yesterday said he would continue to stay on as parliamentary leader, technically that wasn't possible. So effectively yesterday when he resigned as the leader of the party, he de facto also resigned as the parliamentary leader because the caucus rules do not make provision for him to continue to be the parliamentary leader if there is no leader. But I have with me the DA's caucus chairperson, Dr. Athol Trollip, who is effectively taking charge of business for the DA. Dr. Trollip, thank you for your patience, for waiting with us. What was the mood of caucus this morning? Did it take them by surprise that Mmusi resigned via a tweet?
Well, let me put it this way. When we started, people were quite subdued. I then expand the procedure as to what the position is in terms of Mr. Maimane. And then during the course of the morning, people started reading tweets. So I have not had any official sight of Mr. Maimane's resignation. So it's purely on people saying, have you seen the tweet? And I must say the atmosphere was, I think, a mixture of a bit of shock and people, I think people are just want to know what's going to happen now.
How divided is your caucus given developments in recent days within the party?
You know, I think the divisions are exaggerated. Of course we have differences. But if I have to read from what happened in caucus today and the kind of unity there was, I do think the vast majority of the caucus are on the same page.
How does the caucus receive comments made by Mr. Maimane yesterday that this parliamentary caucus is not one that shares those values that he thought he was here to defend and put forward?
It's not something that we discussed, as he was no longer the leader and the parliamentary leader, and therefore it wasn't discussed. So I think we all have our individual opinions about Mr. Maimane's views.
Can you just take us through the process now? You are technically in charge of this caucus. What happens next?
Our caucus rules state that we will have to have an election at our first ordinary meeting, which will be next Thursday. And we also have to give a 7-day notice so that people can be nominated for the positions, allow them time for some canvassing. However, there was a request tabled today that we do that next Tuesday. I will therefore have to get the permission from the Federal Executive whether we can in fact waive the 7-day notice period. I will be doing that today, and if it is not approved, it will go ahead next Thursday, otherwise Tuesday.
So next Tuesday or next Thursday, members will come back to this caucus, and will you immediately start an election process, or will those nominations stand for some time first?
Well, if I call the election, I will immediately open for nominations, so that will obviously be closed. I will still have to consult with the Chair of Federal Executive exactly what date I can close the nominations, and to give the people opportunity to actually campaign.
And then I take it from that, it's only once that's been decided that you can elect a new Chief Whip for this party?
That's correct, and it's not elected, the new acting, because remember this is an acting parliamentary leader until the federal leader is elected, because we don't know whether it will be someone who is in Parliament or not, because if it's in Parliament, then that person automatically becomes the parliamentary leader. But it is prerogative of then whether acting or the parliamentary leader to appoint a chief whip, and then the federal executive have to approve that appointment.
Should the DA elect a leader of the party, as you say, that is not an MP here, will that election that possibly takes place next week, will that be then the permanent parliamentary leader?
Yes, that's correct.
Ms. Lottery, so what do you do now to bring this party together in this time where things are in flux and you wait for this process to unfold? What are your duties now as the de facto leader of the caucus in keeping things together?
I think to provide as much clarity as possible, to make sure that we focus on the job to be done. We are here as parliamentarians, we have our constituencies, and to get the DA's message across. That is my main task.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lottery.
Pleasure.
Michelle, so that's Dr. Lottery. That's what will happen next. I'm not quite sure if you have that bite lined up. Just to speak briefly, John Steenhuisen said he remained a friend of Mmusi Maimane. It said it had been his greatest honour to serve as the chief whip, and he will continue to do his duties as fiercely as he has been as an ordinary MP until such time as the party elects a new parliamentary leader, and with that also then the choice of that leader to pick his whip.
Let me first of all say that I want to pay tribute to Mr. Maimane and thank him for his leadership here in Parliament, and thank you for appointing me as the chief whip, because it has been my greatest honour of my life to serve both him and this caucus here in Parliament. I'm very proud of the caucus that I'm a part of, and I absolutely believe that the work that we do here is the bedrock of building the alternative in South Africa. And we're going to continue doing that. It doesn't matter whether I'm sitting in the chief whip's bench or whether I'm sitting on the back bench. I believe that we have to build a strong alternative in South Africa, that there needs to be a strong opposition to the ANC here in Parliament, and we will continue to do that. And certainly not going to be held back by the recent events. I disagree with Mr. Maimane that the DA is not the vehicle for change. I believe it is the only viable vehicle for change in South Africa.
All right, the outgoing chief whip there, John Steenhuisen, speaking to my colleague Lindsay Dentlinger, live to us there from Parliament. Thanks very much for that, Lindsay.